Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Comedy Chateau here in North Hollywood. I'm with like one of the funniest guys from Pennsylvania. Is that where you're
Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
from?
Mecca of the working man.
Pennsylvania. Mike, how are you, bro?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you for having me on. This is exciting. I literally came off stage.
Yeah.
I'm sweating profusely from a blistering 5-minute set. I'm almost out of breath, but I came to bow down to the podcast gods. So thank you very much.
And I'm glad I could catch you because you always bolt outs. The mic isn't even cooled off from your hand and you're already in the parking lot. I've been trying to catch you for a couple of months to have you on my podcast.
Well, I appreciate
after the
that.
show.
If you'd have told me that there was publicity involved, I would have definitely stuck around.
Yeah, well, that's why I'm like, okay, I'm gonna stand by the door, and I know he's gonna get off and he's gonna bolt, and I'm just gonna catch him, and then we'll just do it. So
Yes,
I stalked
that's
you. That's
exactly what he did.
I did.
It was very honestly.
I did a podcast stock.
Yeah, the messaging, the DMs were kind of weird, but other than that, it was just wonderful.
You didn't like those selfies I took of myself with the,
I didn't say I didn't like them. I just said they were weird.
Dude, you are funny. Like, how long have you been doing stand-up comedy?
Right now, around 12 years. I did about 6 or 7 years back in Pittsburgh, and then now about 6 or 7 years out here in beautiful Los Angeles, California.
Were you one of those class clown type of kids, and you're just like a wisecracker, always coming back with something witty or quippy, or were you that dude, or was it something that you kind of discovered later in life?
Jerry Seinfeld had a great thing. He goes, he wasn't the class clown, he was the class comedian. And he always felt that the difference is the class clown is the person that throws the spitball at the teacher. The class comedian is the guy who convinced him to do it. So I was the class comedian. Yeah, I would be the guy that would take glee. I wouldn't want to make my teacher's life miserable, but I would point out on several occasions how I felt how incompetent they were in their jobs.
See, I think I was both. I think I was class clown and class comedian.
That's an interesting dynamic.
Yeah, because
you'd convince yourself to do the thing you shouldn't do.
Well, when I couldn't convince someone else to do it, in my brain as a comedian, I'm like, this is just too funny to not let it go. So I guess I'll have to do it.
For the sake of comedy, like just for the sake of the laugh, we had to do that. Yeah, I get that. I get that. There is something to be said about, like, when you're a comedian, you have to say it. You have to get it out. And that's why comedians love talking to other comedians, because to normal people with normal morality, when we say something, they're like, how dare you even think that? But then when you go in front of other comedians, they're like, oh, you think that's bad? Here's something. I'll top your crazy thought with this crazy thought, which is why we always love that.
Tell me how crazy this is for like a 7th grader.
All right.
Okay. So I tried to talk my friends into creating a chalk dick and balls on the back of the teacher's jacket.
Okay.
And what my plan was...
By the way, that's a great plan. By the way, in 7th grade, anything with dick and balls involving your teacher, that's a winner. Literally. If I was like a network executive in charge of 7th grade pranks, I'd been like, go with it. You have financing. That's awesome.
Well, I almost pulled it off. But this was a collaboration. I needed a team. This wasn't a self thing. So here's the idea I had.
Okay.
Let me know how out of bounds this is. So I thought would be cool. You know how in the old days you had the chalkboard, and then when you write, all the chalk dust fell in the chalk tray,
Yeah.
and it just would accumulate with all this dust.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought would be really funny is if I had like 4 guys, and each of them as we went in, like the first guy would just take his fist and put it in the chalk like that. Mm-hmm. And then as he came in, just be like, hey, Mr. Todd, and hit him on the back as he came in. Mm-hmm. So you got the chalk fist here. Mm-hmm. The next guy was going to take some chalk on his finger and just go behind him and be like, hey, how you doing? Mm-hmm. And you got like one side of the dick.
Yeah.
The other guy was going to do the same thing to get the other side. Mm-hmm. And then 2 more guys were going to do the circle and do the left testicle and right testicle.
Honestly, this is where you failed. You relied too much on young people to get a plan in.
That's exactly what it was.
It was
too complicated. It was too Mission Impossible.
Yes. If you had a group of people that could have pulled that off, I think the teacher would have said kudos. because it's just been like you want to talk about team building and leadership capabilities. That's a great. But I'm almost. What did it eventually look like?
I almost pulled it off. Okay. I went, because you have about 3 minutes before the class starts in between class. So I wanted to get there early to get that first one in.
I got
so
you.
right off the bat, it's like, hey, Mr. Todd, what's happening?
Yeah.
And he's like, hey, Kimbrew, how you doing? And I waited a couple of seconds, and then I thought, okay, I'm not going to be able to do one side and the other side. So I thought I'd chalk 2 fingers up like that, and then I would just do like, I had kind of strategically kind of like snuck up behind him and got my fingers right on that first fist and be like, hey, Mr. Todd, how's everything going? So I had the shaft in the head. Now I just got to get the 2 testicles. So the guys that I wanted to do it with me, they knew the gig, but they couldn't hold the laughter every time they saw. I'm like, if you're not going to help me pull it off, at least don't call attention.
You needed like Navy SEAL level
SEAL
precision.
6.
SEAL Team
SEAL
6 of 7th grade shenanigans.
Yeah.
See, first and foremost, was it ever found out? Did you get in trouble?
I did get in trouble. I did get sent to the principal's office, but the principal didn't do anything because by that time I had already established myself as kind of a comedian class clown kind of dude. So it was just like, again, and I was like, but this is fun. It's like, okay, but you can't be doing this to teachers, disrupting class, being the,
But here's the thing that I look at this from a perspective of an adult. You want to talk, the whole point of education is to train people to be successful in life. You want to talk about leadership. You want to talk about having ingenuity. You know what? That kind of ingenuity is what eventually develops Google, eventually develops, those great things. So I think personally, the reason why you didn't get in trouble is because I think they're like, you know what? If you'd have just been like, put a thing on the back that said like kick me or something like that, then they would have been like, that's lame, you're going to detention. But because of the at least attempt to bring people together for a common goal, I think they almost looked at that as like, if we could take this energy towards something positive, then we have a chance.
Right.
So that's why I think you didn't get in trouble. But I'm honestly, from a perspective of someone now older, I look at that as so much more positive than the fact that you ruined a low-paid educator's jacket.
Well, it wasn't ruined. It was just chalk. you could just brush it off, and it's like the jacket back to.
Keep telling yourself that. Yeah. It was just chalk on this guy's thing. It never came. I'm sure his washing bill and all that kind of stuff, since he's an independent millionaire teaching public school and wherever.
Yeah, I took advantage of that, but I did the thing, and I did the left testicle. I had 1 testicle to go.
Maybe he was Hitler. Did you ever hear about Hitler only having 1 testicle?
Well, that's what it ended up being because
honestly,
for the last testicle, everybody now was in on the joke because every time he turned around, the class would just laugh hysterically
for the one ball.
For the 1 ball.
See, that's honestly, this is where I think you got wrong. This is where you got greedy. I think you got the laughs. You got the laugh. Stick with the 1 ball. You got the point. It's ball. I know the artist in you sits there and says that, hey, I got to get the other ball in there and all this kind of stuff.
Just to see like the 2 balls in the, I'm 7th grade.
I know. You tried. You tried to reach for that goal, and I get it. I totally get it. But if I'm a coach afterwards and I'm watching film and I'm sitting there going, hey, I think with the 1 ball you made the point. And that's how I would have left it. That's how I would have left it. If I was a coach, I'm watching the film. I'm like, you know what? The 1 ball was good. That's what I would have.
I should have.
That's what
in hindsight, Mike. In hindsight, you're spot dead on. 100%.
That's what happens with wisdom. Wisdom happens, and you learn from your mistakes.
Youth is wasted on the young,
isn't it?
And it's just
seriously, what the hell is with this young people having all the youth?
And it was like
bastards.
It was like a dance for that last one. Because I had the chalk ready to go. But then when I came up, because people were laughing, he turned, and I was like out of range, and I had to kind of like, okay, act like nothing's happening. And then he's like, okay, what's so funny? So now I'm suspect because I'm the one who's like next to, and I'm just like, trying to be nonchalant, which a seventh grader don't have down to a science.
By the way, I want you to look at his face. This face is the face of disappointment. Not in this man. This man tried greatness. It's in the rest of the people in that class. You were this close to seeing a full shaft and 2 balls on your teacher in 7th grade, but you couldn't keep it together. I hope it haunts you to this day that you didn't, that's what happened. Look at this guy. He's still talking about it. He wanted it so bad, and he couldn't do it.
It turned me into an urban legend, at least through sophomore in high school.
Which is all you want. What happened in sophomore that overcame that?
I think we just outgrew it.
You outgrew balls on teachers' backs?
Yeah,
I think that's still funny today.
When puberty kicks in and the hormones, and
then you're just talking about chicks. I get it. All right, I get it.
Once girls get into the mix, you ain't trying to put chalk on the teacher's back.
Honestly, I bet you there's a woman that was like at that point, like a 7th grader, who was just like, that's the man I want to be with, because that's the man that's going to be about getting things done, and that's what I want in my man. I bet you there's a woman right now that's dreaming of you because of that day.
You know what?
And if you are out there, please, for the love of God, contact him.
I did get some makeouts in 10th grade from that whole legend, so I think it was something that worked out for me.
So proud of you.
Were you the kid that did the chalk, like cock and ball?
Cock and ball. That sounds like an English. Pub I'd go to. Let's go to the Cock and Ball. Have a pint. I'd perform at the Cock and Ball. I bet you the Cock and Ball.
Yeah, I would. I'd do a set. I would close it. I would close it.
I'd be a door guy at the Cock and Ball. Welcome to the Cock and Ball. Where can I sit you?
Welcome.
We have the shaft, and then we have the 2 areas onto the side. A dick and ball shaped comedy club. Take it. It's yours.
It's yours.
Internet.
Cockandballcomedyclub.com.
It's
Go
yours.
for it. It's our gift to you. Run with it. So, like when you were doing your set, and sometimes when you go early, it can be a really good sweet spot depending on the audience and the host and the MC or who goes before you. But sometimes it can be, it can be rough. Sometimes the show starts kind of lukewarm, and you got to come in and kind of turn the grill up a little bit, toast it up.
That's why the host is a host is. I mean, everybody always says a host is important. A host is I'm an old offensive lineman. I played offensive line at the University of Connecticut. To me, the host is the offensive line of the comedy show.
Right.
It's the person that was setting the table. Everyone came after them and keeps the energy up. And at the end of the night, when you sit there and be like, that was a really great show, a good amount of that was because of the host. So always kudos to the host.
Right.
And the thing about it is, I remember one time I was hosting at a club, and I sat there and I was talking to somebody, and I go, you know what? It's weird. Like I'm not even doing a set tonight. She goes, oh, hosting's not comedy. Hosting is a completely different. Like there are people that have great sets and are great comedians, but lousy ass hosts. Mm-hmm. And then there's people that are amazing hosts, and if you gave them 20 minutes, they die around 8 minutes.
Right.
But it's a complete skill, and yeah, I mean the thing about going early. Like you said, if the audience is just absolutely on fire, then it's a great spot to be. If it's rough and they haven't settled in yet and they're just kind of like going, I don't know about this comedy thing. That's one thing we always have to remember about comedy audiences. We marinate in this. We see tons of comedy. There's a lot of people in this world that do not go to comedy shows that often.
Right.
And so when they show up, they're like, I don't even know what's about to happen, because their idea of comedy is, an hour special on Netflix or watching The Tonight Show or whatever. And so it's definitely, I always feel when you're a host or you're early on in a show, your job is almost to introduce them to the concept of comedy. Mm-hmm. That's why, like, you talk about being a host, you typically don't want to do anything in the set that's too dare I say, divisive.
Right.
You don't want to do anything because you don't want to. Your idea is almost like to get the audience into the concept of, hey, we're gonna have fun. Things are light. This is you're here to enjoy yourself and just start it up. You're the bread at the dinner table.
Right.
You're not gonna be the main thing at the table, but you can ruin the night.
Right.
If someone does get sick off the bread, the rest of it is ruined.
Forget
but
it.
yeah, it's definitely a certain skill to be early. I think my energy and my passion up there help in terms of getting people responsive. And I also think that comedy is an energy transfer. So if you bring energy, the energy comes back to you. And I also think people respect if someone is present and wants to be there and is showing them that, hey, I'm here to entertain you.
They're not mailing it in.
Yeah, and they're not like, I'm so much better than this place, and I'm gonna do my time, and no, like they put money down. They got babysitters. They got they put their lives on pause. They could be doing so many different things, and they decided to come to the comedy show. And you always show gratitude towards those people for showing up. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, when you take a stage and okay, so you're like kind of reading the room and you're kind of seeing, the comedians. When you step into like a hot spot, when the comedians before you set a solid laugh track, and you can just take that baton, slide in there, and just go with it. What's your strategy for a show like? Because I've seen comedians take a perfectly silver plattered layup comedy, perfect comedy cadence, comedy track, like situation, and completely kill it.
If the energy's high, come in with high energy and get a laugh in the first 15 to 20 seconds. Keep the momentum going. Make it that the audience sits there and says, okay, the good times are keep coming. The thing that people do sometimes is, let's say the audience is hot, the audience is ready, and they take that opportunity to go, oh, let me try this new joke, or let me try this new premise that takes 2 minutes for me to set up. And now the audience has kind of lost its momentum. Right. It's going, maybe the good times are over. Maybe
Super good point. Good point.
So my advice would be high energy, get a laugh within the first 20 seconds, and keep the momentum going. Don't stop the momentum. Now, if it's the opposite, the comics that have kind of, come before you have struggled, in that case, you have to, in my opinion, do a lot of stuff to get their energy going. I usually try to do something relatable to the crowd, like like you saw me today. It was high fiving. It was handshake the first audience, point at somebody, point at the room, point at the where we're at, all this other kind of stuff, so that you get some quick, easy stuff that because sometimes if someone tries to do like a premise or something at that point, they're like, we're not feeling that. Someone told me once that sophisticated comedy audiences want you to tell them something they've never thought of. Unsophisticated comedy audiences want you to tell them something they recognize, which is why you tell them about the room, or you say, hey, look at this guy, or look at me, or look at whatever, because that makes them look at you and kind of go, yeah, I look like this, or kind of like that. There's different ways that you can kind of get an audience on your side, get the audience up. Now, sometimes you go into a room and the last comic, just the audience is all over the place. Like he was just doing something, like a lot of crowd work or something, to where he actually even physically went in the audience or something like that. And now the audience is almost like too wound up.
Right.
At that point, you almost have to calm them down or everything like that. I had a buddy who was an opener for a very, very famous comic, and he had followed this person constantly. And I go, well, how do you follow this great comic? And he goes, you have to let them almost calm down. You have to give them a few minutes to process the concept of what they just saw, and then go from there. So there are different tools in the toolbox in order to kind of get to that point.
I totally agree with you. I spent 5 years in the late 80s, early 90s in Boston, which at the time was the heartbeat of comedy in America. Some of the funniest comics who went on to write film and TV and Saturday Night Live and
Oh, yeah.
Letterman and the Conan show all came out of that Boston time and spent 20 years writing for those shows and won Emmys. I was part of that clique. And in Boston, you know, anywhere else in the country, you have the host and you have the feature, and then you have the headliner close the show.
Yeah.
In Boston, it's the reverse. The headliner is the host of the show, and then he or she will have other headliner buddies that do spots, and then they will slide in like a feature or an up-and-comer or an open micer they like, or somebody that they see is really starting off very hot and good, and they'll be on that show. And what I have found is that tightened me up so much, because every show I went to was like the headliner's hosting and he's bringing up headliners.
Yeah.
And TV writers and and then it's like, okay, Kimbrew, you're on, and they're just, you know, that fast Boston accent, fast stuff, you know, political and academia and social and political. You know, I come from Chicago, where you're doing pull my finger fart jokes.
Yeah.
And they don't want to hear anything that comes out of your body. They want to hear something that's intellectually stimulating about, you know, society, and something that, you know, you'll be able to learn the differences between ethnicities, you know, relationships. They want to hear anything but that stuff. And I was just like, wow. And these guys would be just like, bam, 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 just killing it. And I would go up. And I found what you said is what I used. I'd go or take a pause, and I'd look around, and they would laugh, and they would just kind of see what's up. And I would, you know, come up with, you know, I'm happy to be here. You guys looking at me like I'm the only chip in the cookie. Yeah. You know, and then that would get that laugh. Yeah. But I would just let them calm down first, acknowledge the black elephant in the room. Yeah. And then I'm good. I can go into any material, and they don't have to look at me like, oh, it's black comics going to talk about white people the whole time. I just did that one to get it out of the way, and then I could go into my material, and I was able to continue that laugh track.
It is amazing how being on shows with great comics makes you just put it. That's why you go to an LA or a New York or a Boston or something place where you know you're going to have great comics. If you know, when you need to leave a place when you walk into every show and you're clearly better than everybody else. Right. Like if you never walk into a show and be like, man, I gotta bring A-level material and A-level energy to this room, or I will get buried. If you don't have that every once in a while, then you're in a bad place to grow as a comic. And yeah, I mean, and the other thing you brought up is now the first job you get in comedy is the host. Right. And that kind of, and it makes it to, because in theory, you're like, well, you're only doing 5 or 10 minutes. But there's so many times that the host trips over himself or doesn't understand that and can really kind of really set a bad tempo. That's one of the things I've always said about like why you don't do something decisive as a host, is because it's one thing when you're doing your 15 minutes in the middle of the set. If they don't like you, you're gone. They don't see you again. Right. When you're the host,
you got to come back.
Seeing you. Oh, remember when you had a bad moment 10 minutes ago? Here's this guy again.
Right. Remember when you accuse us of being the sucky people and you being the genius? Is like, no.
Yeah. Yeah, I always love when a comic does rip the room. And you better not when you're the host. It's just like, you're all idiots. You guys don't know shit. This next comic coming on the stage. It's like, get the fuck out of my face. One of the funny jokes was, I think it happened in Boston. Louis C.K. was hosting for Jerry Seinfeld. And Louis C.K. opened it. He goes, this next comic is the best comic working today. Give it up for Jerry Seinfeld. And so Jerry Seinfeld walks on stage, does his 45 minutes, walks off stage. First thing he goes up to Louis, sits there, goes, don't you ever do that again. Don't you set that expectation that I'm the greatest comic in the world. I always love when like a comic will be like, this next comic is the most brilliant comic that has ever walked the. If you don't like him, there's something wrong with you. This comic literally has never said anything not funny. Give it up for so and so. Or someone gave an introduction to somebody yesterday at a show I was doing where they goes, this next comic, I've heard great things.
Oh, right.
It's just like, I'm not backing him up.
Right.
I have
no,
nothing to do
no
with
endorsement from me whatsoever.
But other people have told me.
I heard.
Yeah, I heard through the grapevine that this guy doesn't suck. Give it up for Joe Bag of Donuts.
That was my first introduction to Boston. Yeah, Vinny Favorito. That's how he introduced me, because I went to Boston, and the smartest thing that I could do was be in a corner at every comedy club and just watch, learn, and listen, and watch everything: the bartenders, the waiters, the fans, the open mics, the middle acts, the headliners, just body language, what they're talking about, who's collaborating with who's busting each other's chops, how does the club work, how fast the drinks come out, how fast they turn the room over for the next show, the hosts and to the headliners and to the closer, like how it all works, the material, all of it. And that was probably the smartest thing I ever did in my comedy career, period.
It's amazing when you do this for a few years how you become an expert on all the little things that make a great room and make a good show. And when you're part of something and you're just like, how do you not know this?
Right.
Like, and I'm like, turn off the TVs, turn off the light in the audience, get a spotlight, so many, make sure that they can hear, make sure the room's cold if it's between
turn
cold
off the
and hot.
effects. We don't want reverb. We don't want echo.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many times I've heard comics come off stage and be like, I don't know, that joke usually lands. They couldn't hear you.
Yeah.
Like, legitimately, they could not hear you. They just, the audio sucked.
Yeah.
It's so many little things. And then when you go to one time I did a show where it was in a brewery, and so behind us were like the big, like giant, like cylinders of beer. So when we talked, it was reverb off that, and there was amazing comics because the brewery had money, so they were able to get. Everyone bombed because the only people that could hear the show were the people in the first two rows who could hear the actual voice. People in the back of the room were like, and everyone's like, is this guy even funny? What the heck's he doing? Everybody sounds like Charlie Brown's teacher. What the heck's going on here? But it's amazing how many times a comedy show can be completely screwed, because that's was the thing about the pandemic was we would do so many shows outside.
Right.
And so you would do a show and it would be, 90 degrees, or it would be near the airport and there'd be planes going over, or, there'd be a crazy neighbor screaming over the wall. You ain't funny.
A lawnmower would fire up.
A leaf blower would blow up. Yeah. But you want to talk about like, I was talking to a comic about like what's it like when you start out in a place like Boston or Chicago or Pittsburgh and then you come to LA. If you only do LA, you only play rooms like this, which is a great comedy room. But when you're in places which isn't a comedy centered thing, you're playing bars.
Oh yeah.
You're playing VFWs. You're playing things.
I'm doing Moose Lodge next Monday down in San Diego. In Sonata, I'm doing the Moose Lodge.
My first
no
show.
Stage, no light. I'm not sure how the PA is probably going to be like the Moose Lodge monthly meeting PA.
I got to tell you a story. My first show that I did outside of Pittsburgh was at a Moose Lodge, and it was my introduction to the difference between an urban audience and a suburban audience. In that, like, I was doing my like hip, politics thing, and they were just kind of like, who the is this guy? Who the heck, And then I went back like 6 months later, and I had the more relatable stuff and everything like that. And then 2 weeks later, I did a show where it was a football boosters like charity show, and I was the host. And the head of the Booster Association goes up and goes, "Oh, I've always wanted to introduce the comic." could I introduce you? And what am I supposed to do? She's the one writing the check. I'm like, yeah, you can introduce me, whatever. So she got up there, and for literally 20 minutes, she thanks like every human being in the audience. She sits there and goes, and Becky Sue with her sandwiches, you're just the great sandwiches. And Charlie over there, you painted the locker room. It was a great shade of green. And Billy, you always drove the kids to the game. It was awesome. And so everybody, great. Thank you very much. 20 minutes of that. Thank you very much. It's going to be great. And here's your host. And I'm like, hell of an intro.
Yeah.
I mean, the place was on fire when you gave it to me.
I have had that so many times. It was like I've done a lot of fundraisers. You know, in Boston, you have like a ton of fundraisers, and I was one of those guys because I worked a lot of cruise ships and I worked a lot of colleges. I could work those corporate church, school crowds, you know, and not be, you know, over the edge or out of bounds. And I could do that.
One of the things that I did when I worked charity back in Pennsylvania was, like you talked about, flow of a comedy show. You want it continuous. You want it about an hour and a half. But in terms of a charity, especially everyone had like the auction. So you wanted people to be able to go in there and all this kind of stuff. So the way that this guy would put his show together, I would be the host. So I would do 10 minutes up front. I'd bring the feature up. Feature would do like 25. Then we had a 15-minute intermission.
Ouch.
Then I have to come back up, do another 10 minutes to get the crowd back into comedy, and then the host would come up. And then at the end, I would have to read off the tickets to who won each thing.
Right.
So like as a host, you're up for 10 minutes. Then you wait. Then you've got to bring them back for 10 minutes. Then at the end of the show, you're basically doing almost like a 25-minute improv set because you'd be like, all right, the tickets to the opera, it's 112657. 112657. Okay. 1126. And that would be like a half hour of that. So you want to talk about like getting an ability to speak to an audience, an ability to talk to an audience. Because again, you're up there, you want it to be entertaining. You're talking and be like, you know, we're going to be doing the XLT, you know, Jerome Bettis signed jersey. Obviously not Jerome Bettis's because he is clearly not an XL. Give it up for, you know. But yeah, you learn how to do those things when you're not New York, LA. But it's something that I always tell comics when they're starting out in LA. I'm like, it's, you know, then they always go up to you, but man, you got to do stuff outside LA. I'm like, I know what comedy is outside of LA.
Right.
Trust me, I get that.
Yeah, yeah, I've been there.
I've been there.
Done it.
Don't have to tell me.
Yeah, I did a fundraiser, and it was pretty. It was pretty emotionally draining organization. It was one of those organizations where a child had a traumatic accident that resulted in them being,
by the way, I'm not
quad paralyzed.
I'm not laughing at the kid I'm laughing at the fact that I've been there. I'll tell you, he's going to tell you his story and his battle scars. I'll tell you mine after this. Go.
So it's very intense. Like every single parent that's in the audience had a child that had an accident and they're now like completely paralyzed. And this organization really focused on like, you know, quadruple paralysis, like arms, legs, and completely in a motorized wheelchair in bed for the rest of their lives. Yeah. And this organization raised money to help these families support their kids. So same thing with you. It's like, oh, can I, you know, give the introduction, you know, and I thank a few people. And I was just like, okay, you can, but whatever you do, don't go into any cases that your organization is here to raise money for, because it's just, that is too hard of a emotional, right off the bat to bring them from that heavy emotional weight to get them to laugh. It's going to be
Do you know how many
impossible.
times I've done these shows where like literally some woman goes up on stage and being like, we're here to raise money for pediatric cancer. My son Billy died of pediatric cancer, and when he died, he was 3 pounds, and it rocks me to this day, and
It's exactly.
I can't think of anything that I just miss my son. And here's your next comic.
That's exactly what happened. Exactly.
I get it. So we're doing a show. I'm the feature. Headliner's a good headliner. Like, he tours and stuff like that. Crowd's just not into it. Happens, crowd's just not into it.
Sure.
The person who put the show on goes up to us and goes, guys, great job. You guys did an amazing job. And I sit there and we're like, well, thank you for being nice, but no, I don't think we did well at all. And he goes, oh, no, you have to understand. Half the crowd just came from a funeral of a 12-year-old boy. Then give the tickets to somebody else. But literally, half the crowd just came from a funeral of a 12-year-old boy.
Ouch.
And then decided to go to a comedy show.
Ouch.
And so the guy had the great line. He sits there and goes, well, in that case, we killed. We did great.
Wow.
You can make somebody laugh and just came from a funeral. That's pretty good.
Have you ever made someone laugh at a funeral, like during the, how they do the acknowledgement, the wake?
Mm-hmm.
And I have 2 funerals where my acknowledgement of the person turned into a set, and I actually got them laughing.
The body?
Wow, I'd really be good if the corpse stood up and be like, "Hey, that's funny."
That's some funny shit, man. That's good.
I'm gonna stick around for a few more sets if you don't mind. So don't put the dirt on me yet.
This guy's funny as fuck. I came back to this.
This guy's killing me.
This guy's killing it. This guy murdered me, literally. Luckily, I have not had to attend a ton of funerals, but the greatest. I love the show Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee. If you ever want to get into the weeds of comedy, that's a great thing if you're interested. And Chris Rock talked about that when you're a comic, everyone wants you to talk, like at the wedding or at the funeral or whatever. And so he goes, do you know how many funerals I've had to speak at of people that I almost barely knew? And he goes, I just spoke at a guy's funeral last week. And he just paused. He goes, got some laughs. I mean, it's pretty good. How was the room? That'd be the greatest thing if the priest comes up to you after you're like, you do your thing, goes, how's the room? They tight? Did you loosen them up?
Did you think my my holy water joke will work for this time?
You think the Moses meeting Jesus and the Tyrannosaurus Rex will work?
Well, I wasn't intending to get a laugh. It was a surprise that I got one. And when I got it, a comedian, that kind of opened the door a little bit. So before I got off, I'm like, okay, I've been listening to everyone else. And in my head, I would think of something funny. So I just did a recall of someone before me, and I got a laugh on that callback, if you will, or that recall.
Yeah.
And I ended up having a really good set at a wake. It was crazy.
So do you know how many wakes he got booked after that? His calendar was filled with wakes. Be like, well, my father's about to die. Could we book you now?
Well, you saw the movie Wedding Crasher. I'm the sequel. I'm like the wake comedy set.
Well, that's the thing with the Will Ferrell character. He decided to not go to weddings anymore. He moved on to funerals.
Right.
But I mean, that's the comedy gene. If somebody starts laughing and it's in you to see like, okay, where can I get this? Where can I take this? So yeah, absolutely, been there, done that. So it's all beautiful.
What was like the funnest time you've had on stage doing stand-up, where you're just in yourself, in a zone, and you're levitating,
I did a show
100,000 miles above the earth.
I did a show a couple weeks ago. It wasn't even a show. It was a half show, half like honoring this comic that was moving. And so we were kind of all ripping him. You're only supposed to do like 5 minutes. They let me do 15 because I was just absolutely just making the room just shake. And it's the first time anybody came up to me and be like, yo, Sass destroyed. He destroyed this room. That's the level. It's like, I always figure if you get laughs, you're a comic, you're supposed to. So if somebody sits there and you get laughs and everything you say, that's just good. That's what you're supposed to do. People always misconstrue crush. Crush is you can't get to most of your jokes because the laughs are taking up most of the time.
Yes.
That's that.
Yeah.
Destroy is every joke absolutely levels the room. Like they can't, you have to let them for 30 seconds keep going.
Yeah.
That's destroy, and you do that constantly for 20 minutes, half hour, whatever. That's destroying. Like most of the time, like new comics especially, they'll say like, man, I crushed. I'm like, no, you did your job.
Right.
You said something and they laughed. That's what they paid you to do. Okay? Crushing is you can't get to everything because the laughs are so much longer than normal. And destroying is literally you say one thing and then you don't have to say a damn thing for 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Because they're rolling and they're almost getting it. And then the joke, they almost tell the joke to themselves again. And then there's another joke after that. And you don't even saying anything. You're just presiding over mass convulsions. That's destroying.
Yeah.
And if you get to that point, once every 6 months, you're a pretty good comic.
Yeah.
Most comics just do their job. They just get laughs when they say something.
That's true. Yeah, they almost kind of mail it in.
Well, I mean, that's one I always love hearing stories from the. You talk about a Boston guy, Bill Burr.
Oh yeah,
was opening up for Chateau, and he was at the Tempe Improv. And he noticed over the weekend, being his feature, that Attell would do basically his set, but he'd always have a little different tag. Mm-hmm. And every joke had a little different tag. And he went up to him and just goes, I notice you have your set, but you always do a little bit something at the end that's different every time. Why is that? And he goes, if I just do my set, I always feel that the audience knows that I'm not with them. Mm-hmm. I'm not in the room with them. Mm-hmm. I'm back in my apartment on the Lower East Side. That's where I'm at. Mm-hmm. Because if you just go joke, thank you, good night. Again, that's mailing it in. That's what, and he wasn't doing that. That's why I always tell comics, if they're sitting there going, how do I get to a certain level? You got to be in the room with the people. You can't be so married to your material.
Right.
That you won't let, Quincy Jones had a saying when he goes, when when he's producing an album, he only does 90% of the work, and then he leaves 10% for God to come in the room. He leaves 10% for inspiration, for something that happens in the moment. And I always say, if something happens in the room, if somebody in the front row does something, if somebody says something, whatever, the comedy gods have given you a gift. Don't run away from the gift.
Right.
Take the gift and use it and be part of it, because then it just enhances the entire night for the audience and your set and everything like that. So never upset the comedy gods.
That's one of the things I learned in Boston, just watching these headliners and just being a total fly student on the wall, was these guys did shows every night. Mm-hmm. And they would have people who would come and see them every night. And so they would just do different, you could see their set and you could see their jokes, but like Attell, there was always some insert of some 10% God-like moments in all of their sets and all of their acts.
Yeah.
And for me, because I was doing touring, so I literally could do verbatim, if I wanted to, my exact set night to night, and maybe throw in a thing here or two if I wanted. If I was really inspired, then I would have one of those sets where I would really connect, build a rapport, have a relationship, and use the audience in that relationship to set up my material. And it feels like a conversation in the kitchen of a Christmas party with the cool people.
That's why, like, certain comics, they've said have not done an hour, have not done a Netflix special and not done anything, because they want to be able to do that 45 minutes that they have and not have to, because once it's out there, then they almost feel you have to come up with new stuff. And so there are comics out there that have their 45 or have their hour, and it's been their hour for almost 15, 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Tell you, I had a comic one time when I was doing morning radio in Pittsburgh. We had a comic who'd been doing comedy since like the 1980s. And this was during the election, the first one with Hillary and Trump. Mm-hmm. And he goes to all of us off the air, and he sits there and he's like, "Hey, looks like we're going to have Hillary as the president." And we're like, yeah, looks like it, And she goes, "I can't wait." I'm like, "Well, it'll be interesting having a female president, blah, blah, blah." And he goes, "Nah, I got 25 minutes of Monica Lewinsky material that's going to come back." And so literally he sat there and does his thing. We introduce him when we go, "Hey, this is Joe Bag of Donuts. He'll be doing something at the Pittsburgh Funny Bone, blah, blah, blah." And he sits there and goes, "Yeah, I'm excited about Hillary, but you know what that means? Guess who's back? Monica." And literally does his 20 minutes of 1997 blowjob jokes. And you're just like, are you fucking kidding me? Just write something new, bro. But there are
That's hysterical. He's stuck in the past.
Oh my God, there's so many. I remember one time there was a comic who literally had a reference, and we had to bring him up so many times. He goes, "You realize the reference of the person that you're talking about has been dead for 15 years. The person you're talking about has been dead for 15 years. Your Beatles on Ed Sullivan bit. Two of those people are dead. You can't keep doing that.
You got to move on. You got to write, son. You got to go home and write.
Get pen to paper. Do something."
It's funny when I'm listening to you speak, and I'm recalling all of these comedic moments in my career. And I remember my manager at the time booked me to do the Elks Club in Appleton, Wisconsin.
Fun.
Now, just the thought of that makes me go, this is so gonna suck. First of all, I literally opened up Rand McNally, by the way, because there was no internet back then. You opened up the Rand McNally, you went to the Wisconsin, and then you looked at Appleton, Wisconsin. Okay, you see what route and highway it is to get the closest airport, and so it's like this is like barely a dot, and I'm at the Elks Club.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, I've been to Elks Club shows and they suck, and that's in a big town.
Yeah.
So in asswipe nowhere, it's gonna suck. So I kind of went into it with this attitude that I'm just going to get in and out. I'm going to mail it in, just going to do my stuff. Got 60 minutes I'm supposed to do. I'm headlining. I'm just going to get in and out and just get back to my hotel and get out of there as soon as I can.
Yeah.
I got there. They had put so much love into this Elks Club because there's nothing else there. So any major act, any band, your weddings, all of the thing, they had sound, they had light, they had stage, and the place was packed. And they were a behaved, laugh track audience.
It's one of those things to where when you do play those small towns, the number one thing you get there, it's not, "Wow, you were great." It's, "Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing this. We don't get to see this.
Yeah.
This is." I remember one time I was in central Pennsylvania in the middle of February, and so you come off the major highway, and they had not plowed the roads. And so I'm driving my Honda Civic trying to get to frickin', this place, and it's snowing, and I'm just like, man, no one's going to be there. I'm going to crash to this road, and there's going to be nobody there. This is going to be wild. I eventually get to the venue. Parking lot's packed. Everyone there has trucks. They're fine. I get in there. There's 300 people in there, and they're ready to laugh. And I'm just kind of like, yeah, exactly. You never know what you're about to run into.
Right.
Because that is the thing about playing those places is they are a lot of times just happy that someone took the time to show up to their town.
Yeah.
Someone took the effort because they know that, hey, we are Appleton, Wisconsin, you're 2 hours away, 3 hours from Chicago. They know that.
Yeah.
And the fact that you did that, you went out there and all that kind of stuff, yeah, they were appreciative. Yeah. They were like, hey, man, let's give this time. Yeah.
I had a blast. It was one of the greatest shows. I'm sorry I didn't tape it. It's one of those shows that had I taped it, it's kind of a documentation of this moment actually did happen.
I've had ideas of everybody does their special like in a big theater or something. I don't understand why someone doesn't do their special like at a VFW.
Right.
Or at an Elks Lodge,
right?
Because that's most all comedians have done those at some point. Mm-hmm. And to have that visual of that, the American flag behind you and the World War II veteran thing and all that kind of good stuff. Yeah, I think that'd be an interesting thing as opposed to just the same general theater or something like that.
Yeah. Well, dude, I could chop it up with you for hours, man. I thought this was only going to be about 10 minutes. But it's been a while. So we're going to wrap it up. I'm Ref Kimbrew. Mike, thank you so much for hanging out
Follow
with
me at Mike Sasson.
You can follow me at podbrother.com or refkimbrew.com or check us both out at the Comedy Chateau because we're here on a regular basis. And the International Comedy Festival in June is coming up, the Chateau.
Looking forward to it.
So that's in June. We'll see you then.
Good deal.
All right. Thanks, Mike.